Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Broken Not Broke, the podcast. Everyone in my life, from my social media followers to my friends, have been asking me, when are you going to get a podcast? When are you going to start a podcast? We need a podcast. Da, 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 da. I finally fucking listened. This is the first of many episodes with me, your host, Ashana Maloku. If you know me, you know me. If you don't, you're about to know me. I'm sort of like, I hate the term open book. I think that's like the worst term. I'm more of like I don't really know how to explain it, but you're about to know a lot about me, whether you want to or not. So if you want to, keep listening. If you don't, turn it off. You'll probably come back to it later. So this is the first episode, like I said, and first of all, this is going to be extremely low budget for the first dozens of episodes, to be completely honest with you, because I'm sitting in my car. I'm recording this on Apple voice memos. Like, I don't have a mic or a setup or some high production value because at the end of the day, I'm just a raw, real ass bitch. And I think that it actually adds the authenticity that this is just being recorded from my phone. This is literally just me sitting in my fucking car, fucking talking to you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy it. This first episode is a special one because it's the first one, but it also comes on a full week after losing my mom. So if you know me, if you follow me on social media, if you know anyone who knows me, then you know that last Wednesday my mom lost her life to stage 4 triple negative breast cancer after a little more than a 4-month fight. And 4 months doesn't seem like that long, but anyone who knows anyone with stage 4 cancer or had stage 4 cancer, 4 months is like 400 years. My mom started out with radiation and then went straight to chemo a week after radiation, but was so sick throughout the chemo that she had multiple infections. And at the end of her life, she had an infection in her throat, which didn't permit her to, or kept her from eating or drinking on her own. And so after a long week of, seeing her, just being able to talk a little bit, but not really being able to understand her. And then, she went unresponsive to her body going cold, to her grasping for air. And then, of course, her dying. It was a very long, stressful week. And, I will never be able to get the image of my mom dying out of my head. And for a couple of things that I do want to say about, watching someone with a terminal illness die is that it's painful because it's going to happen. You see that it's going to happen, but you don't know when. So for that week where we were essentially waiting for my mom to die, I was so emotional. And at one point, I just started begging God and started praying and saying, please just take her. Let her make that transition. Let her cross to the other side because she's in pain. And, when you can't eat or drink on your own, first of all, I can't even imagine that shit. Because everybody who knows me knows my favorite thing to do is eat. And so if I'm not able to eat on my own, not only am I going to be miserable, but obviously I'm starving. And, that's in my opinion, an awful way to go. So watching my mom, deteriorate over the course of that week, I really put myself in mourning mode before she even took her last breath. And I did that because I knew it was coming. And every time I would go to the hospital, some days, during that week, she was able to move her arms and her eyes and talk and smile. I remember she was able to give thumbs up, which she loves to do, was able to dap me and my little brother up, another thing she loves to do. And on one particular day, a few days before she passed, she had full-on conversations with me, with my brothers, with her coworkers, with her sisters, and her niece and her niece's husband, who came down from Florida to be here with us during that time. And I am, of course, super grateful for that. My family is super grateful for that. And the hard part was when I would see that she had some energy, or when I was able to actually understand her, or when she was coherent, because as everyone who knows me knows and has followed me on social media since my mom was diagnosed, the cancer had passed to her brain and her bones. And because it was in her brain, as time went on, as we kind of got down to the wire, she wasn't really making a lot of sense. So that week, I watched her going from being kind of I wouldn't say delirious, but having like illusions and hallucinations. And, when she died, she believed she was at home as opposed to the hospital. But as time went on in that week, we got down to the last couple of days, she was able to actually speak. It was hard to understand her because she had fluid in her mouth, and it was like a gurgling sound, and her voice was really low. But she actually was able to give us all parting words, and able to hear and understand and nod her head. And that was hard because in my head, I was like, okay, well, if you're able to start speaking now, you are starting to seem like you know where you are. You're like, she was squeezing my hand at one point. You got a pretty strong grip. Are you going to beat this? Are you going to come out of this? Are you going to get better? Are you going to come home? And I think the hardest part about that was every single time I would go to the hospital, a piece of my heart would just get ripped out of me, to the point where I was just, like I said earlier, begging God. I was like, please let her make this transition. Please let her go, because this is just entirely too painful. Me and my brothers spent the night at the hospital earlier in that week. And, it was hard just to see her like that. So we stopped spending the night, and my auntie actually started spending the night. And she actually was the one who was like, okay, I'll spend the night here, because under no circumstances did anyone want her to die in that room alone. And so on that Wednesday, we had gotten to the hospital later in the evening. So early in the evening, around 6 or 5 to 6, and we stayed. And then we left, and we went to get some food. My auntie, I took her back to her hotel. My little brother and I went home. And then at 10:33, I got the call that she had passed. So I get in the car, in my nightgown. We go up the elevator. We sit in the room for about 20 minutes, kissing her, saying our goodbyes, then going back to our mom's house and going to sleep. I will say that week was the longest week of my life. And I was even talking to my best friend, and I was like, this is so fucking painful, bitch. Is this going to be like this forever? And something that he told me, and I also kind of knew subconsciously, but I just needed that validation. And my aunt told me as well, the lingering and the waiting for them to pass is the hardest part, because you're watching them suffer. My mom looked so uncomfortable. Obviously, as everyone or anyone who's been through something like this knows, is towards the end of the life, the goal of the care is just to keep them comfortable. So they're just trying to control pain so that they don't die painfully. And when I went in the room to say my goodbyes, the night she passed, she did look at peace. But it was eerie. It was like, there's a dead body right here, and that dead body is my mom. So that week was really hard. It was very hard for me. This week, the week after she's passed, and I can't believe it's been a week already, has been a roller coaster. I always heard people say, oh, grief comes in waves, but I've never dealt with grief. And when I say I've never dealt with grief, is I've obviously had people in my life die, but I've never had someone as close to me as my mom, or someone as close to me as my mom die. So I've never experienced firsthand grief. I've experienced, I've lost both of my grandmas, I've lost cousins, I've lost uncles, but I've never lost someone this close to me. And as everyone knows, who knows me, again, knows, I don't have a dad. I don't have a father. I have a father, but he's not in my life for very good reasons. I can't fucking stand the man. And, so this is the only parent I have. This is the only parent I know. This is the only parent I trust and believe to protect me and still believe to protect me, even if she's not here. So losing her has been, I mean, earth shattering. There's so many adjectives and there's so many, words to use to describe this, but I don't think any of them will ever be enough. And that, knowing that is what, I've come to the conclusion, and I'm really living by, is that grief is immeasurable. I can't measure how much grief I have on this day or how little grief I have on this day. It comes in waves. One moment I'm on Instagram and I'm, posting memes and I'm laughing and all this type of shit. And the next moment I'm posting pictures of my mom and listening to her old voicemails and curling up in a ball and crying, or I don't want to eat. I had a full meal for the first time 2 days ago, which is so bad, but it's like, I haven't had the appetite. It's like, I feel so sick to my stomach, but it's like, I get like, and if I do want to eat, like, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to eat today. I'm going to eat something really good. And I'm excited about it. But then when the food gets in front of me, I look at it and I'm just like, I just don't have the appetite. Like, I don't have the appetite to eat this meal that I just spend good money on that I really fucking want. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, grief is so fucking weird. And it truly is a motherfucker. It truly fucking is. I never in my life thought that I would go through something like this. And I know that sounds crazy, but I truly believed my mom would live forever. And, the period when she got diagnosed to the period when she passed I felt like I went through every single emotion in the world that it's possible for someone to go through. I went through denial. I went through anger. I went through sadness. I went through frustration. I went through devastation. I went through every single emotion that I feel like any human being can have in their lifetime in 4.5 months. And, that was really hard because my mom needed me. My mom needed me on my A game, and I knew she needed me. And so because I knew she needed me, I tried to stifle those emotions. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. This fucking sucks. My mom's sick. My mom's losing weight. My mom's falling. My mom's having delusions. My mom's crying. My mom's scared. My mom, she doesn't feel good today. She's not hungry today. She's irritable today, because if you've been around anyone who's had cancer, or if you've had cancer yourself, there comes a point, in your treatment where you're just fucking irritated and you're just fucking mad, and rightfully so. It's like, this fucking thing that I didn't ask for is in my body, and it's affecting me physically and emotionally, but it's affecting my loved ones too. I'm fucking pissed off. And, I watched my mom go through that, and it was really difficult, and it was really hard to, me and my brothers would talk about it. It was really hard to figure out when it would be appropriate for us to have our emotions and when it would be appropriate for us to show that. Because something that people always say to me, and I hate this, it's always like, be strong, be stronger than that, be stronger than that. And it's like, bitch, no. What I'm going through is so fucking shitty. I'm going to go through it, and I'm not going to stifle or call back those emotions for anybody. I did, however, not want my mom to see me like that, because my mom always apologized for having cancer. She always said, I'm so sorry you guys have to do this. When it got really, really bad and she was not able to walk on her own. And when I say not able to walk on her own, I mean me and my 3 brothers having to move her legs and move her upper and lower body to the bathroom and sit her on the toilet and stay with her so she didn't fall. Things that were never, ever, ever going to be her fault. And she would just cry and just feel so terrible. And I was like, why are you sorry? And she's like, I just don't want to do this to you guys. And I would always have to remind her, you didn't do this to us. Cancer did this to us. So being here in the midst of the storm, like, I'm in the midst of the grief storm. Like, I'm not, like, I don't even know if I'm in the midst of the storm. I think I'm like right in front of the storm, and I'm like looking at it, and every single day I get closer and closer and closer. And then I think when we have her funeral, which will be the 29th of May in Pensacola, Florida, where she's from, because she wants to be buried next to her mom and dad and her brothers and her niece, who also died of breast cancer, I think I'm just right in front of the storm. And then I think the funeral is when I'm going to go straight into the storm, because that's when it's actually going to hit me. And I keep telling myself I'm afraid for it to hit me, but I want for it to hit me because I want to get it over with. But then it's also like, I know I can't just get this over with, that this is going to be a never-ending storm, a never-ending battle for the rest of my life. But one thing that has been comforting is it's not going to be like this forever. You know, my best friend tells me, it's actually a Gwyneth Paltrow quote, we love her, fucking love her, that grief is the price we pay for deep and meaningful love. And, you know, I hate this feeling, but I know this feeling is because I had a genuine love that will never be mimicked, is irreplaceable, and means the most to me, you know, and mourning and crying and feeling devastated and feeling lost and feeling all these things that I feel without her, you know, that is a price, that comes as a price of having had such an immense, you know, an immense love that, I mean, I'm describing it right now, but, you know, there's no way to put the type of love a mother has for their child, but there is especially no type of love to put a word to for the love that my mother had for us. You know, she was a single mother. You know, I have a dad, me and my brothers have a father, but he wasn't present in our lives, you know, and he wasn't compassionate, and he wasn't empathetic, and he wasn't caring. And most of all, he wasn't patient. And those are the principles you have to raise a child on. You have to be patient. You have to be caring. You have to be empathetic and sympathetic and compassionate. And you have to be a good teacher, but an even better listener. And you have to be the one person that the first thing that a child thinks of when they do something wrong or when they get in trouble or when they get scared. Your parent should always be the first person you think of. And the first person I will always think of when anything goes wrong in my life will be my mom. And it was always that growing up. So, you know, and I had an amazing relationship with my mom. I had a phenomenal relationship with her. My mom knew everything about me. And when I say everything, I do mean everything. Like every party, every boy, every sugar daddy, everything that I did, my mom knew. And she may not have supported a lot, in fact, most of the decisions that I made, you know, in my late teens, in college, my early 20s. But my mom was always there. And she was always there as a North Star. And if I deviated off the path, you know, I could always trust and believe that she was still going to be there. And now she's gone. And so to have her no longer on this earth with me, navigating it with me, has been the hardest thing to accept and come to terms with. And I, to be completely honest, haven't accepted yet. And I haven't come to terms with it yet because it's only been a week. So it's still fresh and I'm still trying, you know, some days, you know, and I'm having so much trouble, like just answering my phone and like calling people back and texting people back and making all these plans, you know, for the funeral and for after the funeral. And, you know, it's such a roller coaster, but I know things will even out eventually, not quickly, but eventually. And I am just so thankful for my family and my friends. My God, I have a village of people, my coworkers, my social media followers. Everyone has been so amazing to me and to my brothers at this time. You know, grief truly is a motherfucker. Like this shit's a motherfucker. But at the end of the day, everyone in my life has signed up to do this with me. And I could not be any more thankful. So that is all I have to say for y'all or to y'all today. I will be back next Wednesday. I feel good. I feel good for having gotten that out. And thank you to everyone who's listened and who's sharing. And I will see y'all next week.